The ball hit concrete with a sharp, familiar thump that echoed off the brick walls. Jamal Reed palmed it, spun past his friend on the cracked city court, and rose for a jumper. Cold air bit his cheeks. Breath steamed from the boys clustered under the sagging hoop. A radio on the sideline hissed out a muffled rap-track bass, rattling in a plastic speaker that someone had taped together weeks ago. The shot was clean, net snapped thin white strands flashing under a crooked floodlight. 3 in a row, Jamal laughed, jogging backward, palms up. "You are not guarding me, D. You feeling yourself too much," DeAndre called back, grinning. "Coach gonna make you run suicides tomorrow. I am the team man." Jamal smiled wide, the kind that lit his whole face. The logo on his Navy team jacket glowed briefly when the light flickered. There was a tiny rip at the hem near his hip stitched by his mom's careful hand. Then a car rolled slow at the edge of the court. Nobody looked at it at first. Cars always rolled by. This was Chicago in January. Wind scraped along the asphalt, lifting old candy wrappers, pushing them in small circles. A siren wailed far off, just another note in the city's tired chorus. The music cut out for half a second, the radio catching static. The ball bounced once, twice, then settled into Jamal's hands again. He heard the first crack more as a change in the air than as a sound. His fingers tightened around the ball. His chest jerked. For a heartbeat, he thought it was a firecracker, some kids playing dumb in the parking lot. Then the second shot came closer, cleaner. Small flash from the open car window. Heat bloomed low in his abdomen, his knees went watery. The ball slipped out of his hands, rolled toward the baseline, left a wet smear where it brushed his jacket. "Yo," Jamal DeAndre's voice sounded thin, like it was coming through a tunnel. Jamal pressed his palm to his belly. It came away dark. The cold night rushed in everywhere at once. The lights seemed too bright and too far away. "Aw, hell no. Call 911, someone shouted. The court exploded into motion. Sneakers scraped. A phone clattered to the ground, then was scooped back up. The car was already gone, taillights swallowed by the rows of brick and shadow. Jamal lay on his side cheek against the freezing concrete. The smell of his own blood was hot and metallic, stronger than the cheap cologne his friend had sprayed earlier. He could still hear the ball tapping lightly, drifting into a corner like it had lost interest. "I got you, man. Stay with me, okay? Stay with me." DeAndre's hands pressed down on the wound, fingers slipping. Jamal tried to say something about Friday's game, about scouts, about a future that had always felt a little out of reach and suddenly very close. His mouth filled with the taste of pennies. The night sky above the chain-link fence blurred into a wash of gray. He heard sirens again. This time they were coming for him. Double doors burst open at St. Vincent Medical Center, spilling white light into the ambulance bay. The air inside smelled like antiseptic and old coffee scrubbed clean and tired at the same time. Nurse Maya Torres stood just inside the threshold, latex gloves hooked loosely in one hand. The wind sneaked in under the automatic doors, finding the gap at her collar. It carried exhaust, a hint of lake water, and the distant echo of city noise. She rolled her shoulders once quick and small as the paramedics rushed the gurney toward her. "Male 18 GSW to the abdomen," the lead medic called out. "BP is tanking. We lost a lot of blood on the scene." Maya stepped to the side of the gurney, snapping her gloves on. The rubber snapped at her wrists. Her fingers settled around the rail automatically. Her eyes moved fast and quiet. She saw the jacket first. Dark Navy high school team logo smeared with red. A small stitched repair near the hip thread, pulled just a little too tight. The kind of fix someone does late at night at a kitchen table. Her stomach tightened. The world narrowed to the bright circle of the gurney. For a fraction of a second, the hallway was not a hallway. The glare of fluorescent lights turned into sun too bright on sand-colored dust. The smooth linoleum under her feet became rough boards laid in a tent. Dusty boots lined at the entrance. A different boy lay on a different stretcher. Same age, same look of shocked confusion in his eyes. A medic older than her barked orders. Someone yelled about a helicopter. The distant whoop-whoop of rotor blades blended with a flat mechanical beep. "Torres, you with us," a voice cut in. The tent vanished. The hallway snapped back. Maya blinked, drawing in a breath through her mask. The monitor on the rolling stand began to beep sharp and high as they clipped leads onto the boy's chest. "Yeah," she said, "I'm here." Dr. Andrew Cole appeared at the head of the gurney, moving with the efficiency of someone who had run this exact path 1,000 times. His salt and pepper hair was cut close. His eyes tracked everything at once, missing nothing. "What do we have?" he asked, already sliding his stethoscope into place. The paramedic repeated the report in clipped bursts. Cole listened, then nodded once. "Let's move. Trauma Bay 2. The team flowed around the gurney as if pulled on a string. Doors swished open, monitors chimed, the smells shifted from hallway coffee to the sharper sting of iodine. In Trauma 2, the lights were even brighter. The boy who had been Jamal on the court was a patient, now skin paling around the edges, lips losing color. His jacket was cut away with a pair of shears fabric falling to the floor in damp chunks. Maya caught the jacket with her shoe, stopping it from sliding under the bed. Her eyes lingered on the logo for one beat, then she nudged it back against the wall. BP 80/50 and dropping called out someone at the monitor. A woman in dark blue scrubs strode in tablet under one arm and a pen stuck behind her ear. Dr. Priya Shah. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, not a strand out of place. "Let me see," she said, stepping up opposite Cole. Her gaze skimmed the wound, the monitors, the IV line. Her fingers were quick and precise, pressing around the injury, mapping the damage without looking like she was searching. "Exit wound?" she asked. "None," found the paramedic answered. "We think the bullet is still inside." Cole was listening to the boy's lungs, the disc of the stethoscope cold against Jamal's skin. "Breath sounds shallow on the left," he muttered. "Torres, get me another large bore. Let's not waste time." "On it," Maya replied. She moved to the supply cart, hands already choosing what she needed. Her motions were smooth, almost calm. Only the slight tremor at the edge of one thumb betrayed anything else. As she stepped back to the bed, her gaze fell again to the wound. The blood was not just flowing, it pulsed. A steady, frightening rhythm timed with the weak thud of the boy's heart. The pattern of it, the angle, the location low in the abdomen, all spun together into something that felt too familiar. A wash of heat ran up her neck under her collar. Torres Cole's voice came again steady. She handed him the IV equipment. Their fingers brushed for a second. His grip was firm, controlled. Her own felt too warm inside the gloves. Maya forced her attention to his instructions, to the monitors, to the thin line of sweat forming at Jamal's hairline. She counted breaths, watched the numbers slip on the screen, listened to the sound of the beeping already beginning to change. Her hands knew this rhythm. It had another name in another place. She pushed the memory down into the same corner where she kept the sound of helicopters and distant gunfire. The trauma bay filled with the usual chaos of emergency medicine. Voices overlapped, machines chimed, gauze unrolled, scissors snipped. The air itself seemed to vibrate with urgency. Maya stayed close to the bedside, a quiet presence among the noise, her eyes on the boy and the slow spread of red across the sheets. Her fingers flexed inside her gloves. She knew with a certainty that started low in her chest and climbed up into her throat that this was not a simple hole in a simple night. Not for the boy on the table. Not for her. The boy on the table had a name now. Someone had asked the paramedic, and it had slipped into the room almost unnoticed. Jamal Reed. It sat in the air along with the smell of bleach and blood, something fragile that might still matter if he survived this room. "Tube is ready," a respiratory therapist said, standing near Jamal's head. "Good. Prep him," Dr. Cole answered. His voice was steady, almost quiet. It cut through the overlapping sounds without strain. He checked the monitor, then the wound, then Jamal's face. The boy's eyelids fluttered, lashes stuck together with sweat. "Jamal, can you hear me?" Cole asked. There was no response, only a shallow exhale that fogged the oxygen mask. "All right, Priya, let us get control of what we can control." Dr. Priya Shah was already pulling on a fresh pair of gloves. Under the bright lights, her skin looked almost luminous, but her eyes were sharp, completely awake. "2 large bore lines are in," she said, glancing at the IV bags. "Wide open. He is not holding pressure." She stepped closer to the wound. The blood-soaked pad lifted with a soft suction sound when she peeled it back. Maya could see the brief tightening at the corners of Priya's mouth before the other woman smoothed it away. "How long from the scene?" Priya asked the paramedic. "About 8 minutes, maybe 9, he answered. "He was talking when we got there, fading in and out." Priya nodded. "We need a type and cross, and a trauma panel stat." Orders snapped through the room. Someone moved toward the computer, another toward the blood fridge. The suction machine hummed to life, a straw-like sound as it cleared the wound area. Maya shifted closer with fresh gauze, passing it into Priya's waiting hand. Their eyes met for a heartbeat. Up close, Priya's gaze was even more direct. Intelligent, quick, and busy, measuring everyone and everything. "Torres, keep me supplied. Do not let me run dry," she said. "Yes, doctor." Maya watched the way the blood spurted when Priya shifted pressure. It was not a simple ooze. It came in stubborn beats, then sagged, then beat again. The rhythm was wrong, the location wrong, the way it filled the field wrong. Her palms felt hot inside the gloves. Cole finished listening to the chest and nodded to the respiratory therapist. "Go ahead." They removed the mask. The therapist slid the tube between Jamal's teeth in one smooth movement, guided by Cole's hand. The monitor beeped faster for a moment, then settled into a jagged pattern that did not comfort anyone. "Tube is in. Good placement," the therapist confirmed. Cole looked back to the wound. "How deep do you think it went?" he asked Priya. "Judging by entry in vitals, I am betting on a hit to a major branch," she replied. "Maybe iliac, maybe worse." She pressed harder knuckles, blanching slightly through the thin glove. "This is going to be an operative case," Cole said. "We stabilize and we ship upstairs." He spoke as if outlining a simple plan, but his eyes flicked to the blood-soaked sheet, then to the monitor again. Maya felt the shape of the words before she said them. They rose from a place that remembered the weight of bodies on narrow cots, the sound of metal against bone. She swallowed once. "Doctor," she said, keeping her tone careful, almost casual. "The way he is bleeding. There might be a way to slow it a little more before he goes up." Priya did not look up. "We are packing it," she said. "We are already doing that." "I know," Maya answered. "I mean with more focused pressure. Deeper. Targeted. If the artery is shredded in a certain spot, you can sometimes pinch it from the outside. I have seen it done." A beat of silence pressed into the room, even with the beeps and the hiss of oxygen. "You have seen it done," Priya repeated. "Yes, on deployment." Maya heard the word as soon as it left her tongue and wished she could grab it back. "In the field." That got Priya's attention. She lifted her head, dark eyes narrowing a fraction. "In the field," she said, "as in on a base with no imaging, no surgeon, and no backup." Maya felt one of the other nurses glance her way, quick and forgettable. "Yes," she said softly. Priya snorted under her breath a sound that did not quite become a laugh. "This is St. Vincent Torres. We have all of those things. We are not guessing where an artery might be while we stab around it." Cole's hand tightened slightly on the bed rail. He did not interrupt. Maya kept her voice even. "It is not guessing. It is more like using a clothespin on a hose. But from the outside, it is temporary. It buys time." Priya went back to the wound. "What we need to buy is the fastest trip upstairs. Turn over that blood request. I want units in the room now." The other nurse hurried out. The suction machine whined a little louder. Maya closed her mouth. Her throat felt dry. She stepped back half a pace, then stopped herself. Leaving the bedside felt wrong. Her hands wanted to reach for the clamp tray to show, not explain. But there was a chain here, and she was at the bottom of it. "BP is 70/40, the monitor nurse called. "Heart rate 150. "Keep the fluids going," Cole said. "Notify the operating room. We are coming as soon as we have a unit running." He checked Jamal's pupils. The boy's lashes fluttered again. A faint furrow creased his brow like he was trying to concentrate on something just out of reach. Maya leaned in almost without thinking. "Jamal," she said near his ear. "You are at the hospital. You are not on that court. Stay with us." His lips moved barely. A dry breath slipped past them, the ghost of a syllable. "Free? Day?" Priya felt the movement and frowned. "He is not oxygenating well enough for speech. Let sedation catch up." Her tone was clinical, but there was a flicker in her expression that said she had heard the word and chosen not to dwell on it. Maya stepped back again, pulse thudding in her ears. She heard another voice layered over Cole's calm commands from years ago, a captain with a gravel tone standing in a canvas doorway, telling her not to waste clamps and creative ideas on bodies that were already gone. "You are here to follow Protocol Torres. You are not here to invent medicine." The trauma bay light was colder than the Afghan sun had been, but it felt the same on the back of her neck. "Thoracic looks clear." "Abdomen is our battlefield," Priya said, scanning the portable ultrasound Cole had slid into place. The grainy image stuttered across the small screen, black and white and ruthless. "There is a lot of free fluid," Cole said quietly. "He is filling his own cavity." The words were stripped of drama, but every person in the room heard what they meant. "He needs that room upstairs," Priya said. "Soon." Maya's fingers curled into her palms. Inside the gloves, her nails pressed little half-moon shapes into her skin. If we could slow the flow even a little, she tried again, he might arrive with better numbers. There is a clamp that can reach between muscle layers and press the artery against the spine. It is awkward, but if you angle it along this plane, you can get it just enough to make a difference. Priya did not hide her irritation this time. Her head turned and the full weight of her attention landed on Maya. "Nurse Torres," she said, voice soft in a way that did not feel kind. "I am sure your war stories are very impressive. Right now, I need you to do the job you were hired to do. Hang blood when it gets here. Chart accurately. Keep the lines clear. Let the trauma team handle trauma." A few eyes darted between them. No one spoke. Something hot climbed into Maya's face, a slow flush she could feel even through the mask. She dropped her gaze to the bed rail. "Yes, doctor," she said. The monitor beeped again, slightly higher, slightly faster. Jamal's heart was pushing against its own limits. The blood kept coming. It soaked fresh pads as soon as they were laid down, spread in a wide, stubborn stain across the sheets. A thin stream found the edge of the mattress, then dripped lazy and constant into a growing pool on the floor. The drops hit the linoleum with a soft, irregular patter. Maya watched one of them fall. It landed beside the toe of her shoe and splashed outward a dark red halo around cheap white rubber. The sound of it blended with the sharp electronic beeps and the low murmur of voices. Different worlds, same rhythm. Her hands stayed at her sides, for the moment. The first unit of blood arrived with a soft thunk against the trauma bay door. A tech hustled it in plastic bags swinging lightly from her hand. The red inside caught the overhead lights darker than the stain on the sheets, more contained, more obedient. Packed red cells for Reed, she called. Hang it, Priya said, now. Maya took the bag, checked the label out of habit, then spiked it, her fingers moving with practiced speed. The clear tubing filled the red, climbing fast. She clipped it to the IV line, watched the drip chamber start its steady tap. Blood is running, she reported. Good, Cole answered. Tell the OR we have started transfusion. He stepped back from the bed for a moment, just far enough to see the whole picture. Jamal's bare torso, the blotched monitors, the clutter of equipment. Priya's bent head and steady hands. Maya at the side rail, shoulders tense under her scrub top. He rubbed at the bridge of his nose once very briefly, then dropped his hand. Heart rate is 160, the monitor nurse said. Pressure is climbing back a little. 85/52. That is not climbing, Priya said without looking up. That is rearranging the deck chairs. Her attempt at humor fell flat. No one answered. Maya adjusted the flow rate on the blood eyes, flicking between the tubing and the numbers on the screen. She saw the way Jamal's chest rose shallow and fast, the way his fingers twitched against the sheet. Why is he not getting pale? One of the younger nurses whispered more to herself than anyone else. With that much blood loss, he should be whiter. He is, Maya said quietly. Look at his lips, not his face. The nurse leaned in and saw it. The soft darkening at the edges of Jamal's mouth. The way the pink had drained from the inside of his lower lip. Oh, she murmured, stepping back. Maya returned her attention to the wound. Priya's gauze was soaked yet again. The blood was thinner now, mixed with saline and irrigation, but still coming in pulses. Priya glanced up at Cole. If we do not get him up there soon, he will code down here. We are moving as fast as we can, Cole answered. Anesthesia is setting up. They have a room. He looked at the clock. Seconds slid past indifferent. Maya felt them in her teeth. Her mind kept mapping the distance between where Priya's hand pressed and where she knew the artery must run. She could see the line of it in her head, not from textbooks, but from opening torn flesh and heat so brutal sweat had stung her eyes. The room had been smaller there, the ceiling lower, the sounds louder, the rules different. She blinked and the memory sharpened without her consent. Canvas walls that shook with every gust of desert wind, the smell of diesel sweat burned sand, a radio crackling somewhere near the entrance, voices layered over each other in 3 different accents. A boy on a cot, barely 20. Uniform shirt cut open, dog tag sticky with blood. A hole in his side pouring life onto a towel that had long since lost the fight. Maya had stood where she always stood, hands gloved, heart pounding, waiting for orders. The surgeon had been on another call. Helos were delayed. Someone shouted about triage. Someone else cursed the supply crate that had not arrived. Maya had wanted to move, to dig her fingers in, to pinch, to clamp, to improvise. An older medic had stopped her with a hand on her wrist. We do not have the tools, he had said. We do not have the time. You try something wild, you make a mess we cannot clean. Stand down. She had obeyed. She had watched the sheet bloom red in slow motion. She had listened as the beeps on the monitor stretched further and further apart. In the present, the monitor over Jamal's head chirped in a pattern that pulled her back like a hook. Maya exhaled through her nose, her throat felt tight. Orr is ready, someone announced at the door. They want him up there as soon as possible. All right, Cole said, we are moving. He stepped in closer again, voice gaining that extra layer of steel that pushed people into motion. On 3 transfer to the portable bed, he instructed. 1, 2, 3. Hands slid under Jamal, lifting, shifting him just enough to get him onto the transport stretcher. Tube swayed, the monitor stand rolled closer, the blood bag swung beside the bed like a strange vital lantern. Maya kept one hand on the IV pole as they repositioned. Her other hand hovered near the wound, ready to catch anything that fell away. Priya kept her pressure constant, her wrist at an awkward angle. She did not complain. Can you maintain that all the way upstairs? Cole asked her. I can maintain it long enough to get him into an operating theater, she replied. Maya watched the movement of Priya's thumb. The placement was good for general compression, but she could see in her mind's eye the way a more precise angle might pinch the vessel itself. Her fingers twitched. Priya caught the motion. What she said flatly, not a question, more a warning. Maya hesitated for a heartbeat, then decided she had already come this far. If you shift your hand just a little, she said. Voice low and angle pressure toward the spine instead of straight down, you might catch more of the vessel. Priya's jaw flexed. Thank you, I have it. It is just that the way the blood is fountaining, Maya continued, unable to stop now that she had started. It looks like the tear might be at the posterior wall. The clamp I mentioned could reach that plane. Priya's gaze flicked to her sharp. You are a nurse, she said. You have been here, 3 weeks? 5, Maya answered. I have been here 8 years, Priya said. I have done more abdominal trauma cases than I can count. I know how to apply pressure. Her voice was not raised, but it carried a tightness that prickled in the air. Maya nodded, swallowing the rest of her words. Yes, doctor. Cole's eyes moved between them. He did not comment, but there was a crease between his brows, now a small line that had not been there at the beginning of the night. Let us go, he said. They began to roll the stretcher toward the door. The room shifted around them. Carts moved out of the way. People pressed back against the walls. The hallway beyond was long and bright lined with posters about hand hygiene and fall risk. The fluorescent lights hummed above them, a constant sour note. The wheels of the stretcher squeaked every few feet. Maya walked on the side with the IV pole, keeping pace with the team. The blood bag bounced gently with each bump, its fluid level inching down. At Jamal's head, the respiratory therapist kept a hand on the tube, eyes on the rise and fall of his chest. How are we looking? Cole called without turning. Sat is dropping, the therapist replied. 90, 88, 86. Bump his oxygen, Cole said. Already did, came the answer. The elevator waited at the end of the corridor, doors open. Interior empty and clean. It looked too small to hold everything that was hanging off Jamal. Let us make it quick, Priya said. They maneuvered the stretcher inside. Maya stepped in last and hit the button for the surgical floor. The doors slid shut with a soft contact. The elevator began to rise. In the confined space, the sounds changed. The overhead fan whispered. The monitor beeped louder. Everyone's breathing seemed amplified. Maya could smell the mix of latex metal and the faint coppery scent of blood. She watched Priya's hand. The pressure had not lessened, but Jamal's color continued to drain. BP 65/38, the monitor nurse said, eyes wide. Heart rate 170, another voice added. Maya felt the floor under her feet as if it had turned to shifting sand. She heard herself speak before she fully formed the thought. We are losing him too fast, she said. He is not going to make it to the OR at this rate. Priya cut her a look that could have sliced metal. Then we move faster, she said. There is no faster than an elevator, Maya replied, then regretted how it sounded. Cole's eyes flicked to her. Something in his expression warned her, but it was not anger. It was the look of someone who did not like having their own worry spoken aloud. He needs definitive control of the bleed, Priya said stiffly. That happens upstairs, not here. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. The elevator felt smaller. In the tent, a piece of her thought we would have done it now. Her hands remembered the feel of a clamp sliding between muscle and bone, the strange resistance, the subtle give when it found the right place. The way the flow had stuttered, then slowed. The way one more minute of circulation had meant the difference between a body and a living person when the helicopter finally touched down. She looked at Jamal's face, at the faint shadow of stubble on his chin, at the small star-shaped scar near his eyebrow, probably from some childhood fall on the same kind of concrete he had just bled on. His eyelids fluttered again, a tear half formed, and probably only saline clung to his lashes. The monitor beeped a little faster. The numbers ticked downward, lighting up in angry colors. Maya's fingers flexed against the steel rail. The elevator dinged for the surgical floor. The door slid open. They pushed Jamal out into another bright hallway, this one cooler, the air scented with something sharper, more sterile. The entrance to the operating suite loomed ahead, double doors with a red strip across the middle. Let us get him in, Cole said. They rolled forward. The doors parted to let them pass. In the bright filtered light of the OR antechamber, Maya could see the tremor starting in Priya's hand. It was small, but it was there, fatigue and strain finally showing through the practiced calm. The monitor alarmed again. Pressure is 50/30, the nurse said. Heart rate 180. He is crashing. The words hung in the chilled air. Maya's hands curled tighter around the IV pole. The line between what she remembered and what she was seeing grew thin. For a second, no one moved. The hall outside the operating suite had gone very quiet. The only sound was the alarm on the monitor and the squeak of the IV pump as it tried to push fluid into veins that were almost empty. Get him inside, Cole said. The urgency in his voice did not come from volume. It came from the way he clipped the words, the way his eyes had lost their usual distance. They pushed through the red-striped doors into the prep area of the operating room. The light changed again, sharper, filtered by ceiling fixtures that never turned off. The air was colder here, kept that way on purpose. Or two, a circulating nurse called, pointing, room is ready. They veered right. Another set of doors opened. The operating theater weighted table in the center overhead lights turned to full. A scrub nurse stood by the instrument tray, gloved and gowned eyes already counting what might be needed. Transfer on my count, Cole said. 1, 2, 3. They lifted Jamal again, this time, onto the slick surface of the OR table. The anesthesia team converged at his head, checking the tube, adjusting the ventilator settings. Vitals, the anesthesiologist demanded. Pressure 50/30, heart rate 182, the monitor nurse responded. That is not a pressure, that is a rumor, the anesthesiologist muttered. He is dry. Blood is running, Maya said almost defensively. We will need more, Priya said. Call for another unit, at least. She moved to Jamal's left side, adjusting her stance so she could keep pressure on the wound without blocking Cole's view. Her shoulders had that set look, the one she wore during long cases when she refused to acknowledge fatigue. Cole scrubbed his hands at the wall sink fast and thorough. Water splashed up his forearms and dripped off his elbows. He shook them once, then let a sterile towel find them. A scrub tech helped him into a gown tied it at the back. Someone slid gloves over his hands. Through it all, he did not stop watching the numbers on the monitor. Heart rate 185. Pressure 48/28. Oxygen saturation 80, then 78. Can he tolerate induction? Priya asked, quiet and quick. We do not have a choice, Cole answered. We need access. The anesthesiologist frowned behind his mask. He is almost gone already. Anything more and I am pushing him off the cliff. Do what you can, Cole said. We do not have the luxury of waiting. Maya stood a little behind Priya, now near the IV pole in the anesthesia cart. She could see the full length of Jamal's body. His chest moved under the ventilator's rhythm, mechanical and impersonal. His arms lay at his sides, fingers curled in on themselves, nails lined with dried dirt from the court. She saw the way the blood seeped around Priya's hand. Even with firm pressure, it found new paths, thin and insistent. Her own hands felt useless. She knew the clamp she needed was in the tray beside the scrub nurse, a narrow, curved instrument more delicate than the heavy vascular clamps in the front row. It lay in the second line, quiet ready. She could have picked it out blindfolded. Starting induction, the anesthesiologist said, everybody ready. No one ever said yes to that. The question was more ritual than anything else. The drugs went into the line, the ventilator hissed. The beeps of the monitor changed pitch. For a brief, surprising moment, Jamal's numbers improved. The heart rate dipped under 180. The pressure climbed to 50/32. There, Priya breathed. Hold that. Just hold that. Cole stepped in, eyes on the field. Scalpel. The scrub nurse slapped the instrument into his waiting hand. The tip of the blade touched skin. The monitor screamed. The sound was different now, shriller, stretched into a long, continuous note. The numbers on the screen flipped into a pattern no one wanted to see. Pressure is gone, the monitor nurse cried. I cannot get a reading. Heart rate is dropping, someone else said. 160, 130, 90, 40. Then the line on the screen broke apart. For a heartbeat, there was nothing, just a flat strip of green. Then a few wild spikes, erratic and ugly. Then the line flattened again. Asystole, the anesthesiologist said, jaw tight. We lost him. Starting compressions, a nurse at Jamal's side said, already moving into position. She climbed onto a small step stool and placed her hands in the center of his chest. The first push lifted Jamal's body slightly, then let it fall back. The table creaked. Get me epi, Cole said. Bicarb. We are in full code. The neat progression of a planned surgery dissolved. The instruments lay untouched. The scrub nurse stepped back, making space. Maya moved toward the wall, automatically trained to clear the center for the code team. Even as she stepped away, her eyes stayed on the wound. With the pressure gone, the blood had slowed. Part of her brain registered that as wrong. There should have been nothing left to pump. Another part knew it was exactly what a systole meant. Epi, and someone announced. Continue compressions, Cole said. Cycle through. Priya had backed up, giving the nurse room to work. Her gloves were slick, stained up past the wrists. Her eyes looked darker against the green of her cap. She pressed her palms together, fingers steepled in front of her mask for a moment, then let them drop. How long has he been down? The anesthesiologist asked. 30 seconds, the monitor nurse answered. Now 1 minute. The nurse doing compressions kept counting under her breath. 30, 31, 32. The rhythm filled the room. 30 compressions, then a pause, then more. The ventilator hissed. The alarm continued its thin, high cry. Maya felt each push like a small echo in her own chest. She remembered standing at another bedside in another country, watching as a different code played out. The bodies were different, the uniforms were different, the sound was the same. Hands on a chest, a flat line on a screen, the low murmur of numbers no one wanted to say aloud. The older medic had said the words that time. We call it time of death. Maya had felt something inside her curl around those words like a fist closing. She had never quite opened that fist again. In the OR at St. Vincent Cheyenne, the nurse on the step stool pushed harder. Sweat ran down her temple under the cap. Come on, kid, she muttered. Give us something. The monitor refused. The line stayed flat. The numbers read 0 where there should have been a rhythm. 2 minutes, the monitor nurse said. Another round of epi, Cole ordered. Maya pressed her back against the wall. The cool tile did nothing to settle the heat in her face. She watched Cole's eyes. They were focused, intent, calculating. Each drug, each compression, each second counted and added and weighed. He had seen more codes than she had. He had saved more lives, lost more too. She knew that. She respected that. But the shape of this, the speed of the loss, the way the blood had flown before everything stopped, all of it pulled at something older than respect. It pulled at memory. The medic's hand on her wrist, the feeling of standing still while the person in front of her slid away, the taste of dust in her mouth when she stepped outside after the sun too bright. 3 minutes, the monitor nurse said. Check rhythm, Cole said. Cheyenne paused compressions. Everyone's eyes went to the screen. Flat. No change, the anesthesiologist said quietly. Cheyenne put her hands down again without being told. The next round of compression started. Do we have any electrical activity at all? Priya asked, trying for something to hold on to. Nothing organized, the anesthesiologist replied. He has gone electrically and mechanically. The words hung heavy. Cole glanced at the clock on the wall. The second hand swept in its calm circle. Let us finish this round, he said, then we reassess. Maya's heart hammered. Her own breath sounded loud to her, even though she knew objectively it was not. She looked at Jamal's face. His lips were slightly parted. The lashes that had fluttered so stubbornly in the trauma bay were still now. His skin had taken on a gray shade that looked wrong on someone so young. Her gaze dropped to his torso. The wound at his abdomen was not spilling now. The gauze was soaked but static. Underneath, she knew the cavity was full. It did not have to be. Not completely. If someone had reached the artery first, if someone had pinched, clamped, choked the flow before it emptied him out. Her hand flexed against the wall. The tendons in her wrist stood out. She could feel as clearly as if she were already holding at the weight of the clamp. The resistance of tissue, the small, almost imperceptible shift when metal found vessel. 4 minutes, the monitor nurse said. Cheyenne's voice strained with the effort of compressions. I cannot get any recoil, she said. He is too empty. Maya's stomach flipped. Cole looked at the monitor again, then at the boy. He stepped closer, his shadow falling across Jamal's still chest. The room seemed to lean in with him. He took a breath. All right, he said softly. We have given him everything we have. Does anyone have any objections to stopping resuscitation efforts? No one spoke. The ventilator hissed one more time, then was silenced. Cheyenne lowered her hands, chest heaving. She stepped off the stool and backed away, pulling off her gloves with a snap. The alarm on the monitor continued, but it sounded distant now, like it belonged to another room. Maya heard her own pulse in her ears, the blood roaring where his had stopped. Cole looked at the clock. Time of death, he began. The words rose toward the white ceiling. In Maya's chest, something else rose with them. No, Maya heard herself say. It came out before she could stop at a single word that cut through the buzz in her ears and the low hum of the room. Cole's voice had just started. Time of death 20? No, she said again, louder this time. Heads turned toward her. The alarm on the monitor kept its flat, relentless cry. Maya pushed off the wall. Her feet moved before the rest of her caught up. The air felt thick as if she were moving through water, but her path was clear in her mind. Priya blinked, thrown for a moment by the interruption. Cole's jaw tightened. Nurse Torres, he said, the edge, back in his tone, step back, please. She did not. Her gaze had already locked onto the instrument tray. The clamp she wanted sat where she had known it would, third from the left in the second row. Narrow curved, made for reaching where fingers could not. Her gloved hand closed around it. Metal met latex with a soft, certain contact. Maya, Priya said, dropping the formal tone without seeming to notice. What do you think you are doing? Maya moved to Jamal's left side, opposite Priya. The boy's abdomen rose and fell only because the ventilator told it to. His skin was cool and too still. Every part of her training screamed that she was crossing a line. Every part of her memory screamed louder that standing behind it had never saved anyone. She set the clamp on the drape for a second, just long enough to slide her fingers along Jamal's lower abdomen, pressing lightly through the soaked gauze. She felt for landmarks, the hard curve of the pelvis, the pulseless track where a vessel should have fed into living tissue. Her hands knew this map. You are out of line, Priya snapped. Get away from the field. Maya did not look up. His field is already gone, she said, and the words sounded strange in her own ears. Cole took a step closer. Nurse, I am ordering you to stand down. Maya's fingers paused. The clamp weighted inches from her hand. She could have stopped. She could have stepped away and let his words finish. The script would close over Jamal like a sheet. Another voice, one she had not heard in years, rose in her memory instead. If you think you can reach it, Torres, then reach it. The older medic had said that once in a different tent with a different patient. Before the day, he had told her to stand still and watch. Her hand closed around the clamp again. I can get it, she said quietly. Give me 10 seconds. That is enough, Cole said. Back away now, or you will be removed from this room. Maya lifted her head and met his eyes across the table. Behind the mask, his expression was hard, but there was something in his gaze that was not complete certainty. It was calculation. Risk. The cold math of benefit versus harm. His heart is not beating, she said, voice low but clear. You already called it in your head. There is nothing left to lose. The anesthesiologist glanced from one to the other, eyebrows drawn. The nurse at the monitor hovered hands over the controls, unsure whether to silence the alarm. Priya's gloved fingers flexed. "You do not know what you will hit," she said. "You could tear more vessels. You could perforate bowel. This is madness." Maya's throat felt tight, but her hands were steady. All the shaking had moved somewhere else in her body, leaving her fingers free. "I know exactly what I am trying to hit," she said. She slipped the clamp between layers of gauze, tipping it so the jaws faced inward toward the spine. The drape rustled softly. Priya moved as if to block her, but Cole lifted a hand just slightly. "Let her," he said. The word surprised even him. He felt it in the way his heart gave a small and welcome lurch. Priya stared at him. "Andrew," she said, the title dropping without her consent, "you cannot be serious." He did not look at her. His eyes stayed on Maya's hand. "We have already lost him," he said quietly. "I want to see what she's trying to do." The room seemed to exhale all at once. The alarm still cried, but its sound shifted into the background of their collective focus. Maya angled the clamp more steeply. She could feel the resistance of muscle, the give of soft tissue. The tip of the instrument slid along a narrow plane, guided by pressure and instinct. She remembered positioning the same kind of clamp on a different body under canvas lit by yellow bulbs. The sound of artillery in the distance, the smell of dust and blood. The way her own mentor had taken the instrument out of her hand that day, shaking his head. "Not this one, Torres. We have to move on." She did not intend to move on now. "Cheyenne," she said to the nurse who had been doing compressions, pushed down his hip a little. "Here." Cheyenne hesitated, then obeyed, placing her hands where Maya indicated, pressing the pelvis slightly to one side. The angle changed, the path opened. Maya closed her eyes for a heartbeat, shutting out the lights and the faces and the doubts. Her mind laid the artery over what her fingertips felt an invisible line drawn from years of practice and a handful of desperate cases. She opened her eyes again. "Here," she whispered. She squeezed the clamp. Metal met something solid inside, something that pushed back lightly, then yielded. There was a faint, almost imagined vibration up the shaft of the instrument, as if it had latched onto a live wire that was no longer live. Maya held her breath. The room seemed to pause with her. Then from the head of the bed, the anesthesiologist spoke. "Hold compressions," he said, "for a rhythm check." Cheyenne stopped. Her hands lifted from Jamal's chest. The silence that followed the last compression felt loud. All eyes went to the monitor. For a long second, nothing changed. The line stayed flat, the alarm screamed. Maya's heart sank heavy and slow. Then the line twitched. A small blip broke the flatness, then disappeared. "Artifact," the anesthesiologist said automatically, "probably from the last compressions." "Or not," Cole said, voice even. "Resume compressions for 15 seconds, then stop again." Cheyenne went back to work, arms pumping. Maya's hand shook once sharply, almost jerking the clamp. She caught herself and tightened her grip. She could feel the pressure she was putting on that hidden point inside. Too much, and she would crush fragile walls. Too little, and the artery would reopen, spilling what was left. She adjusted by fractions, barely moving her wrist. 15 seconds passed. "Stop," Cole said. Hands lifted. The ventilator continued its mechanical hiss. On the monitor, the green line quivered. Then it rose. A narrow, weak complex appeared jagged but real. "Ventricular activity," the anesthesiologist said, leaning in. His voice had a new note in it, something like surprise. "Very slow, very faint. But it is there." "Check for a pulse," Cole ordered. Priya stepped in without thinking, fingers sliding to Jamal's neck. Her touch was practiced and sure. For a moment she felt nothing. Then against her fingertips the softest push. "There is something," she said, carotid pulse very weak. "Rate is 20, the monitor nurse added. Then 22, then 25. The alarm shifted to a different tone, still urgent but less final. Maya let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. It fogged the inside of her mask, dampening the fabric for a second. "Do not let go of whatever you are pinching," Priya said, eyes flicking to Maya's hand. It was not praise, it was not apology, it was attention. Maya nodded once, not trusting her voice. Her forearm already ached from the angle. A slow burn spread from her elbow to her shoulder. "Give another small bolus of epi," Cole said. "Let us see if we can coax that rate up." The drug went in. They watched the entire room narrow to the screen and the thin neck under Priya's fingers and the clamp locked inside Maya's grip. The line on the monitor crept, then jumped. The complexes grew a tiny bit taller. The rate climbed to 30, then 35, then 40. Pulse followed a delayed echo. "He is perfusing," the anesthesiologist said, sounding almost offended by the fact. "Pressure," Cole asked. 35 over 20, the monitor nurse said. "It is nothing, but it is not zero." The scrub nurse, who had been frozen since the code began, blinked and looked down at her instruments as if remembering they were there. Cole drew in a breath, chest expanding under his gown. "Nurse Torres," he said. Maya braced herself. Yes, doctor. Can you maintain that clamp position if we open? He asked. She looked at him. For the first time since she had grabbed the instrument, his voice held no hint of reprimand. Only precise, practical intent. Yes, she said, if someone can support my arm when it starts to give out. I can, Cheyenne volunteered almost before the sentence ended. Priya's gaze moved between them, taking in the strange new alignment. Her own pulse had quickened. She felt it in her throat. I will assist with exposure, she said. Maya shifted her stance, planting her feet more solidly, deepening the bend in her knees to take some of the strain off her shoulder. The clamp stayed locked in place, metal steady against the hidden vessel. Her muscles protested. She ignored them. Jamal's heart stuttered again, then settled into its fragile new pattern. The overhead light shone on the table, on the sheen of sweat on foreheads, on the thin film of mist inside masks. The alarm finally quieted, replaced by the softer, insistent beeping of a heart that for the first time in several long minutes was trying to work again. Scalpel, Cole said again. This time his voice sounded different. Less like a routine command, more like the beginning of something difficult that might actually matter. The scrub nurse placed the handle in his waiting palm. His gloved fingers closed around it with a small, sure movement. Maya shifted her weight, feeling the strain build in her shoulder. The clamp sat in her hand like a live thing, the tip buried deep, where she could not see it. Cheyenne stepped behind her, one hand braced gently under Maya's elbow. I have you, Cheyenne murmured. Good. Do not move me, Maya replied. If I start to drop, just catch it. The skin over Jamal's abdomen was already marked by the small incision Cole had begun before the code. He followed that line and extended it, blade cutting cleanly. Blood welled along the edge, but not with the flood it had before. Maya felt every change through the clamp. Tiny adjustments echoed up the instrument as Cole parted layers of tissue. Each time he got closer to the vessel, the resistance shifted. Retractor, Priya said. She took the tool and slipped it into the wound, pulling back gently to give Cole a better view. The cavity opened red and glistening under the harsh white light. The smell of iron and cautery filled the air, sharp and metallic. Ongoing venous ooze, Cole noted. But the main jet is controlled. That is you, Priya said under her breath, eyes flicking to Maya's hand. Maya did not answer. Sweat slid down her spine, trapped under the cotton of her scrub top. Her forearm burned. Her fingers tingled with the effort of keeping the exact same pressure on the clamp. Let us find what she has caught, Cole said. He worked deeper, careful, and methodical. The suction tip slurped and hissed, clearing the field. The scrub nurse handed him a series of instruments without needing to be asked, her muscle memory filling in the spaces between his words. The operating room had settled into a new rhythm. The panicked edge from the code was gone, replaced by a tense focus. No one made small talk. No one wasted breath. Heart rate is 60, the monitor nurse reported. Pressure is 45/30. Keep the blood coming, the anesthesiologist said, and watch for any sign of collapse. Maya could hear it all, but the sounds felt distant, as if coming from the far end of a tunnel. Her world had shrunk to the narrow path between her hand and the hidden artery. Light poured down from the overhead lamps, bright enough that every droplet of fluid caught it. Jamal's skin looked almost translucent under it, stretched over muscle that had once driven him down a basketball court. Cole leaned closer, eyes narrowed. There you are, he murmured. Priya adjusted the retractor. See it? In the open field of the abdomen, a torn vessel pulsed weakly, clamped at a point upstream by Maya's unseen instrument. The wall of the artery was ragged, the tear wide. If she had not caught that, Cole said quietly, he would have emptied himself out by now. It was not praise exactly, but it was acknowledgement. Can you give me a bit more proximal, he asked Maya. Her grip tightened. She adjusted the clamp by a breath, nothing more, the way she might have turned a radio knob a fraction to clear static. Here, she said. The vessel collapsed slightly under the new pressure, the leak at the tear slowing even more. Good, Cole said. Vascular clamp. The scrub nurse placed a heavier instrument in his hand. He positioned it with care, sliding it around the artery, at a point just beyond where Maya was holding. The metal closed with a soft click. Release a little, he told her. Maya eased her squeeze hard in her throat. Blood did not surge, the heavier clamp held. I have it, Cole said. For the first time since she had grabbed the instrument, Maya let herself exhale. The breath left her lungs in a slow, shaky stream. Cheyenne's hand under her elbow felt more solid, more necessary. Keep the clamp there for now, Priya said, in case we need more control. Maya nodded, though she already knew she would not be able to unclench her fingers immediately if she tried. Her muscles had locked around the metal, molded to its shape. Cole moved further along the artery, placing clamps above and below the tear. His movements were quick but careful, the ease of long practice, visible even through the tension. Laceration is about 2 centimeters, he said. Ugly edges, we will need to trim and repair. Do you want a patch? Priya asked. No time to get fancy, Cole replied. Simple sutured repair, he just needs a tube that holds. He took the needle driver. The vascular sutures were fine, almost invisible in the bright light. His hands, large and blunt, moved with surprising delicacy. Maya watched through the small window of her position. Each pass of the needle was like thread through fragile cloth. Each knot had to be secure without crushing. Her arm trembled. Cheyenne felt it and lifted Maya's elbow more firmly. Almost there, Cole said. He tied the last knot, then checked the line of the repair. Release the distal clamp, he instructed. Priya did so. The vessel below the tear remained dry. Proximal, he said. He eased that one next. Blood flowed through the repaired segment the wall holding. There was a small seep at one edge, which Cole touched with a single extra stitch. Torres, he said. Maya swallowed. Yes, doctor. You can let go now. The words sounded strange. Part of her did not believe them. Slowly, carefully, she loosened her fingers. The clamp relaxed. The weight of it changed. Inside, the vessel did not spring open. There was no sudden flood, no catastrophic leak. The line of suture held. Good seal, Cole said. Maya slipped the clamp fully out of the wound, lifting it into the light. The jaws were streaked dark. Her hand shook once, a brief shudder that ran from fingertips to shoulder. Cheyenne took the instrument from her and set it aside. Heart rate is 70, the monitor nurse said. Pressure 60/40. It is not pretty, but it is a curve in the right direction, the anesthesiologist said. Maya shifted back a step, then another. The space she had occupied at the table filled instantly with tools and hands. Priya leaned in to help with hemostasis around the rest of the field, catching smaller bleeders, irrigating, checking for any other missed injury. Cole surveyed the cavity, methodical, even with the slight urgency that still threaded his voice. No other major vascular hits visible, he said. We will check bowel and solid organs, then close. Time moved differently after that. The first half of the case had stretched every second thick and heavy. Now minutes seemed to slip by in clusters. The worst of the crisis had passed, but the work remained intricate. Maya stayed in the room, hovering near the supply cabinet and the IV pole. Her arm throbbed. When she finally peeled her fingers closed into a fist, they cramped, protesting the sudden demand after so long in one position. She opened and closed her hands slowly until the stiffness eased. The sounds of the OR shifted again. The beeping was more regular, the ventilator's hiss less ominous. People spoke more brief exchanges about retractors, sutures, instrument counts. Priya glanced over, once catching Maya's eye. You all right? She asked. The question sounded almost grudging, as if pulled from her. Maya nodded. Arm will complain tomorrow, she said. It will live. Priya's gaze dropped to the clamp on the tray. She looked at it for a second longer than necessary, then returned to the field. Good, she said. Stay close. We might still need you. It was the smallest of bridges, but it was there. They finished inspecting the cavity. There was no sign of additional damage. The repaired artery held with each gentle rise of blood pressure. Cole began the long process of closing layer by layer. When the last skin staple snapped into place, the tension in the room loosened another notch. Dress the wound, Cole said. Let us get him to recovery. The scrub nurse and circulating nurse moved in a well-practiced dance, placing sterile pads, taping them, cleaning the surrounding skin. Someone wiped away the dried streaks of blood on Jamal's chest and arms. The boy on the table looked less like a battlefield and more like a patient. Vitals, Cole asked. Heart rate 82, the monitor nurse replied. Pressure 80/55. Sat 95 on current settings. He will need ICU, the anesthesiologist said, but he has something to work with now. Maya glanced at the clock and felt a strange surprise at the time. What had felt like one unbroken moment had stretched across more than an hour. Her legs ached. Her back twinged when she straightened. She realized she had barely moved her feet since she had stepped up to grab the clamp. Let us transfer him, Cole said. They moved Jamal from the OR table to the transport stretcher with care. Tubes and lines trailed and swayed. The new dressing on his abdomen stayed clean white against the tan of his skin. Maya found her old place by the IV pole, one hand on the metal guiding it as they rolled. The doors to the operating theater opened. The cooler corridor air washed over them. The lights out here seemed dimmer after the stark brightness inside. As they headed toward the elevator, the sound of the monitor followed a steady, reassuring beeping that cleared some of the fog from Maya's mind. In the elevator, everyone was quieter. Fatigue settled over shoulders. Priya leaned back against the wall for the brief right eyes closing for a second, then snapping open again. Cole stared at the numbers above the door, unreadable. Maya watched Jamal's face. He was still deeply under anesthesia, features relaxed. The tension that had tightened his brow in the trauma bay was gone. A faint line of dried blood marked one ear missed in the cleanup. She reached out and wiped it away with a corner of a gauze pad. Cheyenne caught the small act and gave Maya a tired half-smile. Nice work in there, she murmured. Maya shook her head slightly. It was not just me. Still, Cheyenne said, not nothing. The elevator doors opened onto the ICU floor. The unit met them with its own rhythm. Monitors chirped in different keys. Nurses moved between glass-fronted rooms, their steps soft on the polished floor. They rolled Jamal into an open bay. An ICU nurse took over the lines with the calm efficiency of someone who lived in this world of fragile balances and machines. "We have an 18-year-old male post-emergency vascular repair," Cole summarized. "Massive blood loss, but currently hemodynamically tenuous and stable." The ICU team began their assessments, looping Jamal into their own protocols. The trauma team watched for a moment, then began to peel away one by one. Priya scribbled notes on a small pad, then tucked it back into her pocket. The scrub nurse had already headed back downstairs with the instrument tray. Cheyenne checked the time and muttered something about overdue charting. Cole spoke quietly with the ICU, attending a few quick exchanges of plan and contingency. Then he turned back toward the hallway. His gaze landed on Maya. She stood a little apart from the bustle in the room, shoulders slightly slumped now that the adrenaline was ebbing. There was a faint red mark across the back of her hand where the clamp handle had pressed for so long. A smear of dried blood darkened one sleeve of her scrub top. Their eyes met. He walked toward her, stopping close enough that she could see the tiny flecks of gray in his eyebrows, the fatigue in the corners of his eyes. "Nurse Torres," he said. Her spine straightened almost automatically. "Yes, doctor." He seemed to search for the right words, mouth tightening, relaxing again. "What you did," he said slowly, "was unauthorized. Risky. Completely outside our standard operating procedures." Her stomach clenched. "Understood," she said. He held her gaze a moment longer. And he added, "I have never seen anything quite like it." His tone had changed on that last sentence. There was something in it that sounded almost like respect stripped of any softness. Maya did not trust herself to speak. She settled for a single nod. Cole inclined his head once, in return a small acknowledgement. Then he stepped away to sign orders already pulled toward the next responsibility, the next crisis waiting somewhere in the maze of the hospital. Maya turned back to Jamal's room. Through the glass, she could see the ICU nurse adjusting his ventilator settings, taping down lines, checking pupils. The monitor above his bed glowed green and stable. Her arm still ached. Her fingers still remembered the weight of the clamp. She flexed her hand once more, then let it fall to her side. The steady beeping followed her as she walked toward the staff sink to scrub off the dried blood, each tone a reminder that for now, his heart was still beating. The water in the staff sink ran pink for a long time. Maya held her hands under the stream until the last of the dried blood loosened and swirled down the drain. The skin beneath the gloves was pale and wrinkled. A red groove crossed the back of her right hand, where the clamp handle had pressed a faint cut that smarted when the water hit it. She turned off the faucet and stood there for a moment, palms braced on the cool stainless steel. Voices moved behind her in the hallway. Carts rattled past. Somewhere a phone rang, 3 times, then stopped. A shadow filled the doorway. "Torres." She turned. It was one of the charge nurses from the ER, an older man with kind eyes and tired shoulders. "Dr. Cole wants you in conference 3, he said. Now." Her stomach dipped as if the floor had fallen a few inches. She dried her hands on a paper towel and tossed it into the bin. "Okay," she said. The walk back down from ICU to the main emergency wing felt longer than it was. The corridors that had been a blur of motion earlier in the night seemed narrower now. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The hospital smell, a mix of antiseptic and recycled air, pressed in. Conference 3 was a small room near the staff lounge. Glass walls on 2 sides, a whiteboard, a round table with 4 chairs. The kind of place where lectures were given and schedules argued. When Maya stepped inside, Dr. Cole was already there. He sat at the far side of the table, jacket off scrub top, a shade darker at the collar from sweat. His hands were folded on a manila folder, fingers interlaced. His hair, usually neat, had gone a little wild at the temples. Dr. Priya Shah sat to his right. Her bun was still tight, but stray wisps had escaped around her ears. Her eyes were ringed with fatigue. A paper cup of coffee sat in front of her, half full and forgotten. No one else was in the room. "Close the door, please," Cole said. Maya did the latch, clicking softly. "Sit," he added. She took the chair opposite them. The metal edge of the seat was cold against the back of her knees. She folded her hands in her lap so they would not fidget. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The noises of the ER outside were muted through the glass, just a distant hum. Cole cleared his throat. "This is an informal debrief," he said, "not a formal disciplinary meeting. Yet." The pause after that last word was deliberate. Maya nodded once, understood. Priya watched her over the rim of her coffee cup, unreadable. Cole tapped the folder with one knuckle. "I have the initial notes from the case. I wanted to hear the rest from you directly, before I decide how to write my report." His gaze was steady. It was not hostile, but it was not friendly either. It was the look of someone weighing outcomes. Maya met his eyes. "Okay. You understand you acted without authorization," he said. "Not once, but several times. In the trauma bay, in the elevator, in the operating room." "Yes," she said. Her voice surprised her with how steady it sounded. I do. You ignored a direct order to stand down, Priya added. More than one. Maya looked at her. Yes, doctor. Why, Cole asked. The question hung there, simple and enormous. Maya took a breath. It felt thick in her chest. Because he was dying in front of me, she said, and everything we were doing was not enough. Cole waited, expression unchanged. She searched for words that made sense in this bright, clean room. On the court she began, by the time the ambulance got there, he had already lost a lot. You heard the medics report. In the trauma bay, his pressure kept dropping even with fluids. In the elevator, we watched it fall again. And in the OR, when you started the incision, he had almost nothing left to give you a chance to fix anything. He coded at induction, Cole said. We were all there. Maya nodded. Yes. And when you started compressions, his cavity was already full of blood. The artery was still open. Every push was more fluid out into a space where it could not help him. Priya shifted in her chair. That is why we needed to open quickly, she said, to get to the source. There was not time, Maya replied. Not at that rate of loss. On a good day with less damage, maybe. Tonight, no. Her fingers tightened together in her lap. I have seen this before, she said. Not with a teenager in a team jacket. With soldiers. With locals caught in crossfire. Same kind of tear, same kind of flow. If you do not choke the artery from the outside first, they bleed out while you're still making the first cut. Cole's eyes flicked to Priya for a second, then back. You are referring to your work overseas. Afghanistan. Yes, Maya said. The word tasted dry. Priya's brow furrowed. Field conditions are not the same as a level 1 trauma center, she said. You keep bringing up tents and bases like that makes any of this less reckless. It does not make it less reckless, Maya agreed. It makes it tested. Priya sat back a fraction, the set of her shoulders sharpening. Tested by whom? By improvising under fire. That is not peer-reviewed research. Maya let that pass. There were papers now, she knew. Studies written by doctors who had watched medics improvise and decided it was worth formalizing. But she did not have those citations in her pocket. She had scar tissue and faces. Cole lifted a hand, a small motion to halt the back and forth. Walk us through what you did, he said. In detail, from the moment you grabbed that clamp. Maya hesitated, then nodded. In the OR, after he coded, she said you called time. Or started to. You asked if anyone objected to stopping. No one spoke. You were right based on the algorithm we are trained to use. 4 minutes down, no pulse, no organized rhythm. She swallowed. I remembered another boy, she said. About the same age. Whole different place. Same kind of hole. Same kind of flat line. We did not try anything outside the book that day. We just watched the monitor go quiet. I have been wondering ever since if I could have done more. Cole's expression changed almost imperceptibly, a small softening in the lines around his mouth. So, when you picked up the clamp, he said you were trying to do more. Yes, she answered. I knew roughly where that artery ran. We had not opened yet, but I could map it from the surface, from the angle of the entry wound, from how the blood had been hitting the pads. In the field, we used a technique that went between muscle planes to pinch the vessel against the spine. It is messy without imaging, but when it works, it slows the bleed enough for evac. How many times have you done it? Priya asked. Personally, Maya said, thinking 3. Once under supervision. Twice when the supervising medic was elsewhere and gave permission on radio. I have seen it done more than that. And the outcomes, Cole said. 2 lived long enough to get to a real operating room, she answered. 1 did not. We were too late starting. Silence settled for a few beats. You understand what this looks like from where we sit, Priya said, fingers tracing the rim of her cup. You are a nurse new to this hospital. You challenged your attending in front of the team. Twice. You suggested a technique we do not teach here, one that involves blindly diving toward major vessels with a sharp tool. It looks like insubordination and recklessness. I know how it looks, Maya said. Then why did you not stop when we told you to? Priya demanded. When I told you to. When Dr. Cole told you to. Maya looked down at her hands. Because I could feel where the clamp needed to go, she said softly. And because if I walked out of that room and he died, I would have to live with not trying. Again. Priya exhaled a slow, tight sound. Cole had been watching Maya's face. Now he looked at his folded hands. When you closed that clamp, he said we got electrical activity back. A pulse. Not much of one, but enough. Yes, Maya said. You think that was causation, not coincidence, he asked. Her mouth twitched at the corner. It was not quite a smile. I think that artery was acting like an open drain, she said. We put a stop in it. You saw it yourself when you opened. You said if it had been free, he would have emptied himself out. Priya glanced at him. You said that she confirmed. Cole nodded once. I did, he said, and I stand by it. He let the words sit there. In the trauma bay, he continued after a moment. When you first brought up the idea of deep compression, I dismissed you. I heard field and deployment, and I translated that as makeshift, uncontrolled environment not applicable here. That was my bias. Priya's head turned toward him. He did not look at her. His attention stayed on Maya. I'm not saying what you did was appropriate in every case, he went on. I'm not even saying it was appropriate tonight. But I cannot overlook the simple fact that when I was ready to call time of death, you did something that contributed to him being upstairs right now with a beating heart. The tightness in Maya's chest eased an inch. I did not do it alone, she said. No, Cole agreed. You did not. But you did something no one else in that room would have thought to do. Priya's fingers tightened around the coffee cup. Her gaze flicked between them. Do you have any idea what would have happened if you had been wrong? She asked. The question sounded less accusatory, now more raw. Yes, Maya said. You would be writing a different report. I would probably be out of a job. His mother would still be getting a phone call. The thought landed hard in the small room. There was no easy angle to soften it. Priya blew out a breath. I do not like that you went around me, she said. I do not like that you forced my hand in the middle of a code. That felt like an attack, and I reacted like it was one. She paused as if choosing between several difficult sentences, but I also cannot ignore what happened after she finished. My pressure, our meds, our pace, none of that changed his trajectory enough. Your clamp did. It was the closest thing to an admission she could manage. Maya looked at her. I was not trying to attack you, she said, or undermine you. I know my position here. I know my badge color. If there had been time to convince you, I would have tried longer. There was not. Priya held her gaze for a few seconds, then dropped hers. I judged you, she said quietly. When you mentioned deployment, I pictured someone who patched up simple wounds and told stories over beer. I did not picture what I saw tonight. That is on me. A small, almost awkward silence followed. Cole straightened in his chair. Here is where we are, he said. Administration will need to review this case. There will be questions about protocol scope of practice liability. I will not pretend otherwise. Maya's shoulders tensed again. However, he continued, when I write my report, I am not going to say you acted out of ego or impulse. I am going to say you acted based on prior experience with similar injuries in different settings. I'm going to say your action contributed to temporary hemodynamic stabilization that allowed definitive repair. Maya blinked. The careful phrasing filtered through. Thank you, she said. The words were simple, but they carried more weight than they usually did. This does not mean there are no consequences, he said. It means I am not interested in reducing what happened to a simple story of right and wrong. He looked at Priya. I also want to understand this technique properly, he said. Its indications, its risks, its training requirements. If it is going to be used in my trauma bay again, it will not be as a rumor from a tent. Maya felt something shift in the room, a slight realignment of gravity. I can walk you through what I know, she said, where I learned it, what the cautions are. It is not a magic trick. It is just another tool for when there is no time. Cole nodded once. We will schedule a more formal debrief for that, he said, with the rest of the trauma team. He closed the folder in front of him, the sound soft but final. For now, he added, your shift is almost over. Go home if you can sleep, or find a dark corner and sit until you remember your legs. The attempt at something like humor gentled the line of his mouth. Priya rose from her chair, coffee cup in hand. She hesitated, then spoke. Maya, she said. Maya looked up. I am not sorry for trying to follow protocol, Priya said. That is my job, but I am sorry for how I spoke to you in the bay and in the elevator. You deserved more respect than I showed you. Maya felt her throat tighten. She swallowed it down. Apology accepted, she said. For what it is worth, I respect how good you are at what you do. Priya's mouth twitched just a little. Get some rest, she said, then slipped out of the room, leaving a faint trace of coffee and antiseptic in her wake. Cole stood too. We are not finished with this conversation, he said. But we are finished for tonight. Maya rose. Yes, doctor, she said. He watched her for a moment, then inclined his head again, a small measured nod. She left the conference room and stepped back into the corridor. The ER sounds washed over her, familiar and jarring at the same time. A child was crying somewhere. A phone rang. A gurney rattled past with a patient complaining loudly about his ankle. The normal chaos of the night shift pressed in, almost comforting. Maya leaned briefly against the cool wall, her eyes closing. The image of Jamal's monitor in ICU rose in her mind, numbers glowing steady for the moment. Her arm still throbbed from the clamp. Her hand still remembered the exact angle of pressure. She pushed off the wall and headed toward the locker room, each step heavier than the last, but steadier than when she had walked into Conference 3. The locker room was almost empty. One fluorescent tube near the back flickered every few seconds, giving the place a tired heartbeat of its own. Metal doors stood half open. The faint smell of detergent clung to the rows of blue scrubs hanging from hooks. Maya dropped onto the bench in front of her locker. The wood creaked. For a moment she just sat, elbows on her knees, hands hanging loose between them. Her right hand still quivered when she let it rest. The skin there was pink and slightly swollen along the line where the clamp handle had dug in. She turned it palm up, then palm down, watching the way the tendons shifted. These hands had done things tonight that were not in any hospital orientation video. She closed her fingers slowly into a fist, then opened them again. Inside the locker taped to the metal was a single photograph. A group shot taken on a base half a world away, 4 people in dusty uniforms, sun glaring off the concrete behind them. The edges of the picture were curled. She looked at it for a long time. The younger version of herself in the photo squinted into the light. Her hair was pulled back under a cap. There was a smear of something dark on her cheek that might have been oil, might have been dried blood. Next to her stood a tall medic with a crooked grin, one arm slung over her shoulders. On his vest, the name tape read Hastings. Maya reached up and touched his face on the glossy paper. "You would have loved this night," she murmured, or hated it, hard to tell. Her throat tightened. She sat back, letting her hand fall. The room around her blurred at the edges. The buzz of the bad light mixed with another sound long buried in memory. Rotor blades. The canvas walls of the aid station had shuddered with each pass of a helicopter overhead. Sand had rattled against the metal poles. Inside, the air had been heavy with sweat and antiseptic, the heat pressing down. Maya had stood at the triage table, clipboard in hand, watching bodies arrive. Some walked, some were carried, some did not move at all. Hastings had been beside her. "You see the rhythm after a while," he had said, voice low. "What you can save, what is already gone." She had not wanted to believe him. One afternoon, they had received 3 casualties at once. 2 American, 1 local. All with various holes where no holes should have been. The surgeon had been elbow deep in an abdominal case. The second doc was dealing with a chest. Hastings had taken one look at the local boy and shaken his head. "Too much belly," he had said. "No resources left. We tag him expectant." Maya had stared at the boy on the cot. His eyes had been open wild with pain. His shirt was soaked. The towel under his back glistened. The monitor they clipped to his finger flashed a pattern that looked bad even to her then. "We could try the clamp," she had said. Hastings had frowned. "You practiced that twice," he said. "On training dummies and one private. You want to try it blind on this kid with no surgeon to fix whatever you tear." He had not yelled. He had not belittled her. His tone had been weary more than anything. "We have to move on Torres," he had added. "That is how this stays a job and not a slow burn to crazy." She had stood there torn between orders and instinct. In the end, she had done nothing. She had moved down the line, taken vitals on another soldier, handed over gauze and comfort. When she came back, the boy's monitor was flat. Someone had pulled the sheet up. Now in the fluorescent locker room, she could still see his face. She exhaled slowly, pressing the heels of her hands into her eyes until stars burst behind her lids. Tonight she had not walked past. The thought did not feel like triumph. It felt like a fragile truce with a ghost. She changed out of her scrubs movements automatic. The cotton of her own t-shirt felt strange against her skin after hours in hospital fabric. Her jacket smelled faintly of detergent and the outside air she was about to step into. As she laced her shoes, another image pushed in. Jamal's mother, who had not yet arrived. Somewhere in the city, a phone that had not rung. A woman who did not know that her son's heart had stopped and started again under harsh light. Maya tied the knot too tight. She sighed and loosened it. She was not ready to go home. Instead, she found herself walking not toward the exit, but toward the small administrative corridor off the trauma wing. The lights were dimmer here, some offices dark behind closed doors. One door at the end still had a thin strip of light under it. She recognized the name on the frosted glass. A. Cole, MD. MD Chief of Trauma. Her hand lifted before she decided what she wanted to say. She knocked twice. There was a brief pause. "Come in," his voice called. She opened the door. Cole's office was smaller than she had imagined. A desk, a filing cabinet, a bookshelf crowded with old journals and a few framed photos. The largest picture showed him in younger years standing with a group of residents in front of a different hospital. Everyone looked tired and proud. Cole sat at the desk jacket back on, no tie still loosened at the neck. His reading glasses rested low on his nose as he stared at his computer screen. The light from it washed his face in blue. He looked up when she stepped in. "Torres," he said, "I thought I told you to go home." "I know," she said. "I will. She trailed off, suddenly aware that she had no clear reason for being here beyond a restless pull. He waited, hands folded on the desk. "I wanted to ask if you wanted the names," she said. His brows drew together. "Names. Of people who use that technique in the field," she clarified. "Units that studied it. There are after-action reports, some published now. If you're serious about wanting to understand it, I can write them down. He sat back slightly considering. Sit, he said. She took the chair across from him, the same as in the conference room, but the air felt different here. Less formal, more cluttered. Cole reached for a yellow legal pad and a pen. Go ahead, he said. I am listening. She listed what she could remember. The designation of a combat support hospital. The name of a British surgeon who had been fascinated by non-compressible torso hemorrhage. You be your hedge. A paper she had heard mentioned in a briefing title half recalled. He wrote it all down in neat block letters. You have a good memory, he said. Some things stick. She replied. When she finished, he set the pen aside. You know, he said, I have spent most of my career thinking of military medicine as a separate world. Brave people doing the best they can with not enough. But not something I needed to incorporate here. Maya watched his hands. The knuckles were reddened, the skin at the base of his thumbs cracked in tiny lines from endless scrubbing. Tonight, he continued, I saw something from that world reach into mine and change the course of a case. I would be an idiot to pretend it did not happen. She shifted in her seat. It is not all usable, she said. Some of what we did over there was patchwork. Desperation. But some of it turned into real advances. Tourniquets, massive transfusion protocols, junctional devices. This clamp thing is somewhere in the middle. He nodded slowly. I want to move it out of the middle, he said. Out of rumor and into something we can teach or reject with eyes open. That means data. That means listening to people who have used it when bullets were flying instead of just reading about it in journals. His gaze settled on her. Including you, he added. She felt a flicker of something like embarrassment under the weight of that statement. I am not a researcher, she said. I am just a nurse who did not follow instructions. You are a clinician with experience I do not have, he replied. That matters. He leaned back, chair creaking. When I was a resident, he said, I thought the protocol was the whole story. Follow the steps, get the result. Anything outside that looked like chaos. Then I started seeing cases that did not read the same book I had. Elderly patients who crashed without warning. Kids who bounced back from injuries that should have killed them twice. The edges of the map are always messier. Maya listened, the words settling into places in her mind that had felt jagged. I still believe in protocol, he said. It keeps us from freelancing our way into disasters. But if it cannot flex where reality demands it, then it becomes its own kind of danger. He rubbed his thumb against the edge of the legal pad as if smoothing it. You forced that flex tonight, he said. In a way I do not intend to encourage as a habit. But I am not blind to the fact that the rigid version of me would be signing a death certificate instead of ICU transfer orders right now. The image of the clock over the OR wall flashed in her memory, the sweep of the second hand when he had started to say time of death. I did not mean to force anything, she said. I just could not listen to those words again. He studied her for a moment. You lost someone like him, he said. It was not a question. She nodded. Yes, more than one, he guessed. Her eyes went to the side, to a spot on the wall where a diploma hung crooked. Yes, she said again. Silence stretched quieter this time. Cole took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Go home, Torres, he said finally. Get some sleep if you can. When you come back, I would like you to pull whatever you can find on those reports. Bring them to me. We will go through them together. The thought of sitting in this office again, not as a reprimand, but as part of a conversation, felt strange. Not unwelcome. I can do that, she said. She stood. So did he. As she reached for the door handle, he spoke once more. You did good work tonight, he said, even if we still have to figure out how to write it down. She turned slightly. The room's lamplight caught the lines on his face. Thank you, she said. Outside the office, the hallway seemed a little less sharp. Her feet carried her toward the exit, now toward the doors that led to the parking lot and the cold Chicago air. At the end of the corridor, a janitor was mopping headphones on, head nodding to a song only he could hear. The faint smell of industrial cleaner mixed with the ever-present hospital scent. Maya pushed through the last set of doors. Night wrapped around her crisp and dark. The sky above the city was a dull gray clouds hiding the stars. The distant thump of traffic rolled in waves. She stood for a moment under the overhang, hands in her jacket pockets, breath clouding in front of her. Somewhere high up in the building behind her, a monitor in the ICU continued to beep. Steady, insistent. She listened until the sound in her head lined up with it, then started walking toward her car. 3 days later, the ICU had a different sound. The beeping in Jamal's room was softer now, more regular. Machines still framed his bed, monitors still watched every beat, but the urgent edge was gone. The numbers on the screen no longer flashed angry colors. They glowed a calm green. Morning light filtered through the narrow window, turning the white walls a weak gold. Snow clung to the ledge outside in thin patches. Maya stood just inside the doorway, hands in the pockets of her scrub top. She had come up on her break coffee forgotten somewhere on the nurse's station downstairs. Jamal's eyes were closed, lashes dark against his skin. A tangle of curls rested on the pillow. The breathing tube had come out the day before. Now an oxygen cannula looped over his ears, the plastic resting under his nose. His chest rose and fell on its own. A woman sat in the chair by his bed. Shoulders hunched in a winter coat, hands wrapped around a paper cup that had gone cold a long time ago. Her eyes were fixed on her son's face. She did not notice Maya at first. Mrs. Reed said the ICU nurse at the bedside gently. "The trauma nurse is here." The woman looked up, blinking as if pulled from a deep place. Her eyes were red around the edges but clear. "Oh," she said, standing quickly. "You are with the team that worked on him." Her voice shook a little. Maya stepped closer. "I am one of the nurses who took care of him in the emergency department," she said. "My name is Maya." Mrs. Reed moved before Maya could finish. She closed the distance between them and took Maya's hand in both of hers. "Thank you," she said. The words came out rough as if they had been scraped from her throat. "They told me he almost died, that if it had been a few minutes different or if you had not done something. I do not really understand all the details. I just know my boy is still here." Her grip was warm and fierce. The skin of her palms was dry from winter air and overuse of soap. Maya felt her own throat tighten. "We all worked on him," she said. "A lot of people did a lot of things." Mrs. Reed shook her head. "The doctor, the one with the gray in his hair, he came up here yesterday. He told me there was a moment in the operating room when they thought it was over. And then he said, no, there was this nurse who would not let go." Her eyes shone. "He said your name." Maya glanced at the ICU nurse who pretended to check the monitor. She looked back at Mrs. Reed. "I did not do it alone," she repeated softer now. "I know," the woman said. "But you were there. You were the one who was not ready to give up. That matters to me." She squeezed Maya's hand one more time, then finally let go. On the bed, Jamal stirred. His fingers twitched. His eyelids fluttered. Mrs. Reed turned back to him at once, leaning in. "Baby," she whispered. "Hey, I think we got company." Jamal blinked his way up through layers of sedation. His eyes opened halfway, irises unfocused at first, then slowly finding shape in the room. He saw his mother. A smile tried to form on his face and almost made it. "Ma," he croaked. She laughed a choked sound. "I am right here," she said. "You gave me a scare I am never forgiving you for." He tried to chuckle. It turned into a cough. The ICU nurse stepped in, adjusting the oxygen, checking his saturation. Jamal's gaze drifted past his mother and landed on Maya. He frowned a little as if trying to place a half-remembered melody. "You were there," he rasped. Maya stepped closer, keeping her voice light. "In the emergency department," she said. "You might not remember. There was a lot happening." His brow creased. "Lights," he murmured. "You leaning over, cold. I remember the light in my eyes, and someone saying something about Friday." "You did," Maya said. "You said you had a game." He blinked. "Did I miss it?" The question hung there. It was somehow both ridiculous and exactly right. "Yeah," she said. "You missed that one." His face fell a little. "But," she added, "from what I hear, they are already talking about the next season. And the fact that you are around to complain about missed games is going to make your coach very happy." The corner of his mouth lifted. "I was supposed to drop 20 points, he said, voice thin. "Maybe save it for when your stomach is not held together by somebody's neat stitching," Maya replied. He looked confused for a moment, then glanced down at the bandage on his abdomen. "Damn," he whispered. Language his mother cut in, swatting his arm gently. He smiled at her, small but real. Maya stepped back a little, giving them space. The ICU nurse checked the monitors again and made a note. "Vitals look good," she said. "We will let him rest in short spurts. He just woke up yesterday. We do not want to push too hard." Mrs. Reed nodded, one hand never leaving Jamal's forearm. Maya slipped out of the room. In the corridor, just outside, a large television was mounted on the wall near the nurse's station. The volume was low, but the captions crawled along the bottom in neat white letters. A news segment was playing. The camera showed a helicopter view of the city, then cut to the front entrance of St. Vincent. A reporter in a thick coat spoke into a microphone. The caption caught Maya's eye. "Local teen survives shooting after dramatic hospital rescue." Her stomach clenched. The image shifted again. For a second, grainy footage from a security camera filled the screen. It showed the trauma bay brighter and flattened by the wide-angle lens. The angle was bad but recognizable. A gurney in the center, bodies moving around it like a wheel. The clip cut quickly, but not before she saw a small figure step forward from the edge of the frame, reaching for something on the instrument tray. The camera was too far to see faces clearly. Names did not show. The anchor's voice droned on about a nurse with military experience and split-second decisions. Maya looked away. At the nurse's station, someone had the same story pulled up on a tablet. An article. There was a photo of Jamal from a school game jersey on ball in hand mid-shot. The headline used words like heroic and against all odds. Did you see this yet? Cheyenne asked, coming up beside Maya with a fresh stack of charts in her arms. Her hair was pulled back messier than usual. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Caught a glimpse, Maya said. They are already calling you the mystery war nurse, Cheyenne said. Apparently that is catchy. Maya sighed, rubbing her temple. Fantastic. Cheyenne grinned. You should see the comments. Half of them are people arguing about gun laws. The other half are med folks yelling about protocols and scope of practice. It is a whole thing. Of course it is, Maya said. Cole gave a statement, Cheyenne added. Maya looked up. He did. Yeah. They cornered him on his way in this morning. He said something very calm and doctor-like about interdisciplinary experience and adaptive trauma responses. Did not throw you under the bus. Did not pretend you were not involved either. That sat strange and solid in Maya's chest. I did not do any of it for a camera, she said. Cheyenne snorted. Obviously. If you had, you would have picked a more flattering angle. That security footage makes all of us look 2 feet shorter and 10 pounds heavier. Maya could not help it. A small laugh slipped out. Cheyenne bumped her shoulder lightly. Word travels fast in the hospital, too, she went on. There is talk of a training session, something about crossover techniques. Cole has been emailing the department heads. Maya blinked. Already. Apparently he does not sleep, Cheyenne said. You surprised by that? Maya thought of the light under his office door, the legal pad with notes in his careful block letters. Not really, she admitted. Later that week, a notice went up on the board in the staff lounge. Adaptive hemorrhage, control lessons from field and city, presenter A. Cole MD with M. Torres RN. Maya stared at the printed sheet for a long time. Her name looked strange there alongside his. The day of the session, the small lecture room off the auditorium was full. Residents squeezed into chairs, nurses stood along the back wall, a paramedic crew sat together, arms crossed, curious. Cole stood at the front, a simple slide behind him showing a diagram of abdominal vessels. No dramatic headlines, no footage. We are going to talk about bleeding today, he said. Specifically, bleeding in places that hands and pressure cuffs do not easily reach. He spoke for a while about non-compressible torso hemorrhage about mortality curves, about the speed of loss versus the speed of access. His voice was calm, his information precise. Then he stepped aside. Maya, he said, you want to take the part about what happens when you do not have a clean field and a full team. She moved to the front, heart beating a little faster than usual. The room felt different from the trauma bay, but the faces here were familiar versions of those she had worked with. Priya sat near the front pen, ready eyes focused. Maya took a breath. She described in careful terms what it meant to be alone with a bleeding body and a ticking clock in a tent that shook with every distant explosion, how the clamp technique had come into their practice not as a miracle, but as one more chance in a situation with very few. She did not embellish. She did not dramatize. She laid out indications, cautions, failures, as well as successes. Hands in the audience took notes. Afterward, people came up in small clusters. Some asked technical questions. Some just nodded a quiet recognition of one professional to another. As the room emptied, Priya approached. You explain it well, she said. Hope so, Maya replied. It is not the kind of thing you want people misunderstanding. Priya nodded. No, it is not. She looked down at her own hands, then back up. I want to learn it properly, she said. Not just what I saw in the OR, the whole technique, the right cases to use it, the wrong ones, if you are willing to teach. The request settled between them. Maya thought of Hastings, of the local boy on the cot of Jamal's pulse under Priya's fingers when it had come back faint and stubborn. Yes, she said, I am willing. Priya's shoulders eased a little. Good, she said. I do not want to be the person in the room who cannot see an option because it is not in the old books. They walked out together into the corridor side by side, their footsteps matching on the polished floor. Somewhere above them, in a quiet room with a view of the winter sky, a heart kept beating against the inside of a repaired artery. The city thawed slowly. By late March, the snow in Chicago had mostly turned to dirty piles along the curbs. The air still bit, but the wind carried a hint of something softer under the chill. Inside St. Vincent, the weather mattered less. The ER had its own seasons marked not by temperature but by the kinds of calls that came in. On a Friday night just before midnight, the trauma pager went off. Priya was at the main desk finishing a note. She looked up at the sound eyes sharpening. What do we have? She asked. The charge nurse checked the screen. Motor vehicle collision, he said. Single car, high speed into a barrier, coming in hot. The words moved through the department like an electric current. The trauma bay lights flicked on. A respiratory therapist rolled a ventilator into place. A tech checked the airway cart. Maya stood at the supply cabinet restocking IV kits. She heard the page and felt her focus narrow. Her hands finished what they were doing, but her mind shifted to the gurney that would be coming through the doors. The ambulance arrived 5 minutes later. Sirens wound down as the doors burst open and the paramedics pushed in a stretcher. Male mid-20s, the lead medic called. Unrestrained driver front-end collision, steering wheel deformity, hypotensive at the scene, tachycardic, suspected intra-abdominal bleeding. Blood spattered his pant leg. His gloved fingers were smudged brown. Priya walked alongside as they wheeled the patient into Trauma 1. Her voice was calm, movements quick. Name, she asked. Not fully responsive, the medic replied. Wallet says Kyle Harper. Kyle's head lolled slightly with each bump. A bruise was already spreading across his chest where the steering wheel had hit. His abdomen looked distended and tight. Maya fell into place at the bedside, hands ready. The routine unfolded. Monitors connected, IV lines started, airway assessed, lab orders fired. But beneath the choreography there was a new layer. It sat in the background like a melody played under a familiar song. Priya's gaze went to Maya. Keep an eye on his pressure, she said. This smells like trouble. Yes, Dr. Maya said. The numbers on the monitor told their story. Heart rate 130, pressure 90 over 60, then 85, then 80. Priya listened to Kyle's lungs pressed on his abdomen. He winced, a weak sound escaping his lips. Right upper quadrant tenderness. Guarding, she said. He is a surgical belly. Cole arrived, then coat half-off stethoscope already in his hand. What did I miss, he asked. Priya ran through the summary in short, efficient bursts. Mechanism, vitals, exam, response to fluids. Cole listened, jaw tightening. Ultrasound, he said. Maya handed him the probe. The screen flickered, then showed the black and white grainy shapes of organs and free fluid. There it is, Cole said. Positive fast. Significant free fluid in Morrison's pouch. He is running out of time, Priya said. Agreed, Cole answered. We need to get him upstairs. He started giving orders, blood, or anesthesia. Maya adjusted the flow rate on the IV, watching the numbers on the monitor. Pressure is 70 over 45, the nurse at the head of the bed called. Heart rate 140. Maya felt the familiar tension rise, the edge between unstable but okay to move and might crash in the elevator. The thought moved across her mind without invitation, non-compressible torso hemorrhage. The phrase felt different now, less like a rumor, more like a defined category. Priya's eyes tracked the numbers too. She took in the fullness of the abdomen, the pallor creeping across Kyle's face. Cole, she said. He looks like he is circling the drain. You think he will hold for the ride? Cole hesitated for a fraction of a second. It was subtle, but Maya saw it. Or is closer than it feels, he said. We will take him now. They prepared to move. As the team began to shift the gurney, a junior resident at the foot of the bed spoke up. Her badge read Chan in small letters. Dr. Shaw, she said. Her voice wobbled, but she held the words together. I was reading about these resuscitative techniques for blunt abdominal trauma. There is something like an emergency balloon occlusion that can slow the flow from below. It is not standard here, but if we had a catheter, we could... She trailed off, flushing. A few months ago, Priya might have cut her off with a sharp remark about focus and scope. Tonight she did something else. She turned fully toward the resident. Walk me through what you are thinking, she said. The words were calm, curious. Dr. Chan blinked, surprised by the invitation. It is called REBOE, she said. Resuscitative endovascular balloon occlusion of the aorta. They use it in some trauma centers and in the military. It buys time by stopping blood flow to the lower body. We do not have a formal program here, but I know there are catheters and vascular. Priya listened without interrupting. Cole watched them both. Risks, he asked. Limb ischemia, Dr. Chan said. Bowel injury, misplacement. It is not something to try casually. I just thought... She faltered again. You thought the usual road is looking rough, Priya said. Yes, the resident replied. Cole tapped the bed rail, once thinking. We are not set up to do REBOE safely here, he said finally. Not yet. I'm not going to greenlight a Hail Mary we cannot back up, but I appreciate you bringing it up. Dr. Chan nodded, cheeks still pink. Understood. Priya checked Kyle's pupils again. He is still with us, she said. Let us not waste him. They moved out to the hall. In the elevator, the same small box that had carried Jamal weeks before, the air felt less suffocating. There was urgency, but there was also the weight of new options in their shared vocabulary, even if they did not use them tonight. Pressure. 68 over 38, the nurse said. Heart rate 150. He is not going to like induction, the anesthesiologist muttered. Maya stood by the IV pole, eyes on the monitor. She thought about clamps and catheters, about old techniques and new ones, about the way knowledge moved when people were willing to let it. In the OR, they worked fast. Kyle's abdomen held a different story than Jamal's, but the theme was the same. Blood where it should not be. A liver laceration large but repairable. A spleen that would not cooperate and had to come out. There was no moment this time when the monitor went flat. No need for a desperate reach into unseen spaces. The crisis was straightforward if anything about a bleeding young man on a table could be called that. Still, the rhythm of the team had changed. When a nurse at the back murmured something about an alternative suture pattern she had seen in a training video, Priya asked her to demonstrate on a piece of spare tissue. When anesthesia suggested a different agent based on a new study, Cole nodded and listened. The edges of the map had widened a little. Hours later, Kyle lay in recovery, his abdomen stapled, his vital signs stable enough. Maya walked past his bay on her way to the break room. The monitor above his bed beeped in a familiar, comforting pattern. On her break, she found herself on the hospital roof. The night air was cold but less biting than before. The rooftop garden bare in winter showed the first signs of green pushing through the soil in a corner planter. Lights from the city stretched out in all directions. Headlights flowed along the freeway. Windows in high-rises glowed in uneven patterns. She leaned her forearms on the railing and looked down at the small patch of asphalt that was the ambulance bay. The big red emergency sign cast a faint glow on the concrete. From somewhere below, faint but distinct, came the hollow, rhythmic sound of a ball hitting pavement. She turned her head, listening. After a moment, she spotted them. On a court 2 blocks over between 2 apartment buildings, a cluster of figures moved under a flickering streetlight. One kid went up for a jump shot. The ball arced, hit the rim, spun, fell. The sound floated up soft and steady. It mingled with the beeps in her memory, with the hiss of ventilators, with the echo of rotor blades that never fully left. Maya looked down at her hands. Under the rooftop lights, the skin was a few shades darker than the sky. The faint red line where the clamp had marked her had faded, but it was still there if you knew where to look. These hands had held pressure on wounds in tents and in modern operating rooms. They had hung blood and written notes and checked pulses. They had hesitated and regretted and then finally refused to stand still. She turned them palm up, fingers slightly curled, feeling the stretch of tendons. Behind her, the roof door opened. "You hiding up here?" a voice asked. She did not turn right away. She knew that voice now. "Taking a minute," she said. Cole stepped up beside her, hands in the pockets of his coat. His breath clouds mingled with hers. "Harper is settled," he said. "Liver patched, spleen gone. He will gripe about the scar in a few months if all goes well." Maya nodded. He was lucky. "There was skill involved too," Cole said. "Do not give Chance all the credit." They stood in silence for a while. The city sounds rose and fell. "You hear that?" Maya asked, tilting her head toward the court. Cole listened. The ball hit concrete again. A shout floated up, indistinct but joyful. "I do," he said. "I try not to think too hard about how many of them end up on my tables." "Me too," she said. He glanced at her hands on the railing. "How is the arm?" he asked. "Less angry," she said. "It has forgiven me, mostly." He smiled, a brief curve of his mouth. "Good," he said. "I have a selfish interest in keeping it functional." She raised an eyebrow. "We are putting together a skills lab," he explained. "Hands-on. Simulated hemorrhage control, vascular access, some field adaptations. I would like you there as more than just muscle." "I saw the notice," she said. "I thought maybe someone typed my name by accident." "No accident," he replied. "I meant what I said in the office. Your experience is not an accessory. It is a part of what we do now." The idea settled somewhere between her ribs and her spine. "It feels strange," she said. "People ask me questions I used to ask other people." "Strange is not always bad," he said. They watched the court below for another minute. One of the kids made a particularly clean shot. Even from this distance, Maya could feel the small rush that followed it. "Some battles are obvious," Cole said quietly. "Others are quieter. Rooms with bad lighting and too many beeps. You seem to find your way to them." She did not answer. The word battle did not feel wrong. He pushed off the railing. "I should go write notes before the system eats my chart," he said. "Try not to freeze up here." "I will come down in a bit," she said. He nodded and headed back to the door. It clicked shut behind him. Maya stayed a little longer. Her fingers tapped lightly on the railing, matching the rhythm of the ball below for a few beats. The sound drifted up steady and insistent. The same city that sent broken bodies through the ambulance bay kept offering these small, stubborn sounds of life. She looked at her hands one last time, then tucked them into her jacket pockets. When she turned toward the door, the hospital lights cast her shadow long across the roof. She walked back inside, letting the warmth and noise of the corridors close around her. Behind her in the city night, the ball kept hitting concrete. Inside, monitors kept time with hearts that were still trying. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.